I want to welcome everyone to this morning's hearing. It is not unusual for the subcommittee to hold oversight hearings about NIST. However, events over the past 6 months have revealed some serious flaws in the environmental, health, and safety programs at NIST. This subcommittee has been the strongest champion of NIST in Congress, and its members have spent a lot of time educating our colleagues on the outstanding scientific and technical work of NIST employees and the tremendous value of NIST's work. On a bipartisan basis, this subcommittee has championed increased funding for NIST's scientific and technical activities. However, along with scientific and technical excellence, NIST needs an equal dedication to safe laboratory and general practices. This is especially true at the NIST labs, where staff routinely work with hazardous materials and high-powered equipment such as radioactive material and lasers. In the past 6 months, NIST has had at least 2 significant accidents. The first involved the use of a laser in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and the second was the accidental release of plutonium in Boulder, Colorado. Initial investigations revealed the same basic issue in both cases: a lack of training for the researchers performing the experiments and inadequate laboratory safety policies. These might sound like minor incidents, but they have had medical ramifications for NIST employees, including one person who experienced eye damage from the laser and another who underwent prophylactic treatment for radiation exposure. I'm concerned that the laser event did not trigger an immediate review of all of NIST safety training, which might have prevented the subsequent incident in June. I'm also concerned that NIST did not act on the Visiting Committee on Advanced Technologies, or VCAT's, 2006 recommendation that management needed to be more involved in and place more emphasis on environmental health and safety issues. I'm also deeply concerned that there did not seem to be a sensitivity and appropriate priority placed on communicating with the surrounding communities to prevent the dissemination of information which might be alarming and which may or may not be accurate to the surrounding communities. The purpose of today's hearing is not to place blame. It is to understand how this situation developed, what needs to be done to instill a culture of safety in the NIST laboratories while maintaining scientific excellence. I want to thank our outside experts for assisting the subcommittee in its endeavors, and I now would like to recognize my friend from Georgia, the subcommittee's ranking member, Dr. Gingrey, for his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for calling today's hearing to review the details and the causes of the June 9th spill of plutonium that occurred at the NIST labs in Boulder. And of course, you mentioned also the laser accident at Gaithersburg. First and foremost, I'm very thankful that those in proximity of the spill have thus far shown no adverse side effects from their exposure to plutonium, and of course, as I said, the other accident involving the laser. It'll take time. Only time will tell the adverse effect of those 2 incidents. That's not to say, however, that the sample containing 250 milligrams of various plutonium isotopes posed no health or safety risk when it was mishandled. I'm very disappointed that the preliminary investigators of this incident to date have revealed not just a stunning lack of preparation, but also a complete lack of understanding of the potential risk involved in the use of encapsulated plutonium samples. It appears as though researchers were unaware of the potential risk and quickly went forward to obtain and use the samples without appropriate precautions in place. Of even greater concern, safety protocol was either not in place or not properly followed. That would have flagged this acquisition ahead of time or ensured that proper training and equipment were available. Mr. Chairman, this incident is absolutely unacceptable. It could have been avoided, and it should have been avoided. One of the NIST independent reviewers, Dr. Lester Slayback, notes in his report, the incident was the inevitable, or at least highly likely and foreseeable end result of numerous individual and organizational failures. I do applaud Dr. Turner for recognizing the gravity of the problem at NIST, and I am cautiously optimistic that employees throughout the agency will also heed this wake-up call. However, this incident makes clear that simply having safety policies on paper does not ensure that they will be adequately executed. And I hope Dr. Turner recognizes, I'm sure he does, that a fix will not come through onerous safety directives from top-level officials. Rather, change must involve every employee or visiting affiliate at NIST adhering to documented safety procedures so that an incident like this does not occur again. I expect that during the question and answer portion of today's hearing, we'll be able to discuss how NIST can ensure that their safety programs, including radiological safety, become examples of best practices instead of examples of shortcomings and inadequate preparation. Indeed, you know, when I think of NIST and what I've learned of NIST and visited at Gaithersburg in the time that I have been a member of this committee, I have come to expect the very best of this age-old organization that's practically called for in our United States Constitution. I mean, it is a hugely, hugely important, and it's just shocking that this would have occurred. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission's investigation of this incident is, of course, still ongoing, so I'm sensitive to the need for the Commission to complete that work before discussing their findings. I'm thankful, though, that Dr. Miller and Mr. Collins have made themselves available to explain the NRC licensing requirements, safety guidelines, and process for responding to this event. Their expertise and insight will be extraordinarily useful to the committee as we place this incident in its proper context and seek ways to improve the safety systems at NIST. Mr. Chairman, NIST has a scientific legacy of achievement for which we are rightfully proud. I think we all agree that equal effort must go into safety considerations at NIST. We cannot accept a cavalier attitude towards safety. We are not using plutonium as if we are trying to send a DeLorean back in time, like in the film Back to the Future. There are greater safety concerns for which our researchers at NIST should be prepared, and moving forward, this agency should be better positioned to implement better training and safety protocols. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back to you.
I thank the gentleman. If there are any other members who wish to submit additional opening statements, your statements will be added to the record at this point. I'd like to introduce our witnesses, and I thank you all for appearing before the subcommittee today. Dr. James Turner, who is the Acting Director of NIST. Dr. Charles Miller, who is the Director of the Office of Federal and State Materials and Environmental Management Programs at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. He is joined from the NRC by Mr. Elmo Collins, who is the Regional Administrator of Region 4, based in Arlington, Texas. Mr. Collins is directly involved in investigating the June 9th incident at the Boulder laboratories. Lastly, Dr. Kenneth Rogers. Dr. Rogers was asked by NIST to provide an independent review. One of several individuals asked for that independent review of the June 9th incident and to offer recommendations. And Dr. Rogers is also a former commissioner of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As our witnesses know, spoken testimony is limited to 5 minutes, after which the members of the committee will have 5 minutes each to ask questions. Your written statements will be fully taken into the record. And with that, Dr. Turner, if you would, please commence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Wu, Ranking Member Gingrey, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the June 9, 2008 incident involving the release of plutonium at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, Boulder Laboratory, as well as NIST Environment, Safety, and Health Practices. Mr. Chairman, I deeply regret the incident. My top priority has been and continues to be the health and safety of our staff involved in this incident. According to the latest analysis of the medical testing of the personnel involved, the physicians have relayed that the increased overall risk for cancer based on dose estimates are so small they don't expect there to be any clinically significant impact on either the short or long-term health of anyone exposed. We will continue to provide our personnel with access to top medical care as well as we continue testing. We have been able to ascertain through numerous interviews and reports that the incident involved a guest researcher who handled a radioactive source without appropriate training and supervision. My written testimony provides further details about the incident and the immediate response. The researcher handling the source material at the time most certainly should have had the required training appropriate to the researcher's work and consistent with the commitments made under the NRC license. Partially as a result of a lack of this training, actions taken during the incident and immediately afterward by the researcher exacerbated the extent of the incident and complicated the response. The incident and the conditions that permitted this incident to take place are unacceptable. I pledge to you and the subcommittee my personal assurance that we will do what is necessary to find the root cause or causes, take appropriate actions, and ensure to the best of our abilities that such a failure does not occur in the future. The Department of Commerce is establishing a blue ribbon panel to look broadly at safety and training issues at NIST. Also, the Department's Office of Inspector General is conducting a broad review of management, training, safety, and response operations at all NIST facilities. I have welcomed the involvement of external individuals and organizations to provide advice, guidance, counsel, tough counsel, as to what NIST could have done, can do in the short term, and must do longer term to address shortcomings in our safety, training, and emergency response preparedness. As a direct follow-up to this incident, NIST senior management has taken a variety of actions, including requiring that each laboratory director and chief officer certify that all staff, employees, and associates have in place the required safety training prior to being allowed to continue their work. Issuing safety stand-downs, creating new lab teams to review hazards and inspect labs, initiating more systematic approaches to eliminating, reducing, or controlling the risk of different hazards, including emergency response and recovery. I have taken several immediate actions, and we are conducting our own investigations. I have moved the Office of the NIST Safety, Health, Environment Division into the Director's Office so that it now reports to the NIST Deputy Director, who is our Chief Safety Officer. I've asked my staff to revamp NIST emergency communications procedures. I've also designated NIST Chief Scientist as the Incident Response Director in order to provide stronger on-site support in Boulder. He is currently on-site leading the effort and will be there indefinitely. I have traveled to Boulder and plan to return there after this hearing. I'm attempting to arrange meetings with state, county, and local officials during this visit. I have ensured that NIST Boulder issue a stop work order for all radioactive materials in use, and a preliminary decision has been made to limit the use of radioactive materials in Boulder in the future to sealed sources. At my request, 5 eminent experts in radiation health safety conducted an assessment of the incident. An author of one of those reports, Dr. Ken Rogers, is on the panel today, and you will hear from him directly on his findings and recommendations. Their reports are sobering in their assessment of our challenges, and I take their words seriously. Their views about our shortcomings confirm my belief of the need to focus our efforts on NIST's entire environment, health, safety, and emergency response protocols and safety culture to ensure that we're measuring up to both the requirements and the highest expectations for a world-class organization. I expect that these experts will continue to provide insights to me and others at NIST in the coming weeks. The lack of training provided disturbs me greatly, Mr. Chairman. I am committed to making the changes necessary to reduce to the maximum extent possible the opportunity for such a situation to occur in the future. This includes reevaluating our training to make sure it is appropriate, establishing testing mechanisms to ensure that training is mastered, and creating controls to document training. Our ongoing assessment will help us address critical areas for improvement. Mr. Chairman, based on the information available at this time, this incident was preventable. NIST culture and organizational structure contributed to an environment in which line supervisors, failed to take adequate responsibility for safety issues, and safety personnel failed to assert a sufficient level of authority to ensure compliance with existing procedures and practices. I again pledge to you my commitment to improving our safety practices, ingraining a sustainable safety culture, and thereby ensuring the health and safety of our employees and local communities. I will report to you regularly and will keep you apprised of our findings and projects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Turner. Dr. Miller, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm honored to appear before you today to discuss the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's role in regulating and inspecting radioactive materials facilities. I hope that my testimony will be helpful to you in understanding the regulatory framework and the oversight of facilities such as NIST and how NRC responds to events at these facilities. My written testimony has been submitted for the record, and I'll use my time this morning to highlight some of the key points. Following that, during the question and answer period, Mr. Collins and I would be happy to answer any questions with regard to our activities, including the inspection. Under the authorities and responsibilities granted by the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 as amended, NRC issues licenses for use of radioactive material to qualified applicants that meet our regulatory requirements. The primary responsibility for safety and security of the radioactive material lies with the licensees who possess and use the material. NRC inspects the users of radioactive material for compliance with both safety of the regulations and any additional conditions made during the licensing. Prospective licensees wishing to possess and use radioactive material must submit a license application to the NRC showing how their facilities, personnel, and program controls meet the regulations and protect the workers, the public, and the environment, and provide adequate security of the radioactive material. Each application is reviewed by NRC technical staff. If the regulatory requirements are met, NRC issues a license outlining the conditions under which the radioactive material can be used. Licensees must request and obtain from NRC a license amendment to change its license or its conditions. Because of the potentially serious consequences that can result from the failure to comply with NRC regulations, every licensee must conduct its radiation safety program according to the conditions of its NRC license, representations made in its license application, and NRC regulations. NIST is licensed to use solid encapsulated plutonium in quantities less than critical mass. Use of the material must be done in accordance with explicit procedures. NIST's NRC license requires a radiation safety officer whose role is to ensure license conditions are met and radiation safety practices are followed. The NIST license also includes a commitment that all individuals working with licensed sources or those who frequent areas where licensed sources are present shall receive annual radiation safety training at a level appropriate for their assigned duties. It is the responsibility of the licensee's management and the radiation safety officer to ensure individuals who access these sources or facilities receive appropriate training. NRC conducts periodic inspections of licensees to ensure compliance with regulatory requirements and license conditions. The licensing decision was to assign an inspection frequency at the NIST-Boulder facility of every 5 years because of its activities, which are relatively low risk given the small amount of radioactive material that the lab is authorized to possess and the approved uses of the material within the lab. NRC may supplement the periodic inspections with reactive inspections. A reactive inspection is a special inspection in response to an incident, an allegation, or information obtained by the NRC to focus on the sequences of events leading up to the incident. The contributing root causes of the event, corrective actions taken or proposed by the licensee, and a discussion of the regulations applying to the incident and where they were not met. All NRC inspections are documented and the results are provided to the licensee. With the exception of some security inspections, they're publicly available also. Failure to conduct operations in accordance with the regulations and license conditions can result in enforcement action against the licensee or even individuals. NRC's enforcement program is built upon a potential or actual safety significance and considers program factors such as repeat violations, willfulness, or disregard for the requirements. On June 10th, NIST informed the NRC of the June 9th contamination event. Upon learning of the event, NRC dispatched a health physics inspector to the site on June 12th and followed that with a senior health physics inspector on the 19th. Upon the consideration and the feedback from those inspectors, we escalated our inspection activities to a special inspection team, and that was dispatched to Boulder on June 30th. The team's detailed inspection is in progress. Results of the special inspection and the team's work will be issued within 45 days upon the conclusion of the inspection. On July 2nd, we issued a confirmatory action letter confirming the agreed-upon actions that NIST took and plans to take as a result of the event in the order. Pursuant to the CAL, NIST has agreed to take a number of actions. Those actions are outlined in my detailed written testimony. Although we've yet to identify any safety aspects of the June 9th event with significant impacts to worker public health or safety, we are continuing our evaluation of the circumstances of the event itself and how NIST's programs, procedures, and policies contributed to the event. NRC's efforts will ensure that if there were violations, NIST will develop and implement effective and lasting corrective actions. I hope my testimony provides you with an understanding of our regulatory role at the NRC, how it fits NIST, and how the NRC responds to events at these facilities, and the seriousness with which we take our duty to protect public health and safety in the environment. Mr. Collins and I will be pleased to respond to your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. Mr. Collins, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Collins is with me today to answer any questions that the committee had, but our testimony at this time is complete, our oral statement.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Mr. Collins, you are temporarily spared until the Q&A period. Dr. Rogers, please proceed.
Chairman Wu, Ranking Member Gingrey, and members. Because you've already heard a great deal about this, I'm going to confine my presentation to general findings and recommendations. And they are preliminary. They were based on one day there and a review of materials that were supplied to us at that time and since then. There is no uniform system supported at all levels of management to nurture and support a culture of safety awareness as a high priority in every NIST-Boulder activity. Policies and personnel exist at NIST that might have prevented this particular mishap. For example, the NIST Administrative Manual, the NIST Laboratory Safety Manual, the Safety, Health, and Environment Division, the Division Safety Representatives, and the Ionizing Radiation Safety Committee. However, safety procedures have not been consistently understood, applied, and enforced at both Gaithersburg and Boulder. Some parts of the organization appear to have regarded safety formalities as interfering with creativity and safety activities, as somewhat unwelcome competitors for scarce resources. The Boulder Safety Organization, particularly its training activities, has been minimally supported and has had to function with inadequate technical and human resources. However, there has been some improvement in the last year or so. There were numerous instances in the evolution of this incident in which important information should have been, but was not, communicated up one level or down one level or horizontally. People failed to ask essential questions. They made incorrect assumptions and acted upon them. Several persons we interviewed felt uncertain as to how the safety organizations were supposed to work, and one described the safety culture at NIST as dysfunctional. The NIST-Boulder organization has not met a central leadership challenge to successfully blend and maintain the enthusiasm of a collection of very talented people for cutting-edge research with a deep respect for personal and community safety. My preliminary recommendations are as follows. NIST must proceed apace with the decontamination and, if necessary, the decommissioning of all laboratory areas affected by the spill, employing experienced, well-regarded professionals. Consistent, open, and clear lines of communication providing up-to-date factual information about the incident must be created and maintained to the NIST-Boulder staff and to all interested government and concerned public interest entities. A comprehensive root causes and lessons learned analysis must begin immediately and involve experienced, recognized experts in such analyses from outside of NIST. Use of radiological material at Boulder should only take place in laboratories specifically qualified for such purposes in accordance with well-established standards and requirements. Room 12124, in which the spill occurred, did not meet those standards. A new costs benefits analysis should be carried out that includes continuing conducting the research for the detector program requiring polonium or other special nuclear material at laboratories well qualified to work with such materials. The use of the plutonium sources, CRM 133, 138-1, and 138-2, that are on site should not resume in any research at NIST Boulder, and alternative, safer, sealed sources must be used in any further work at Boulder. Resumption of the research project should only occur after all staff connected with it are thoroughly trained and qualified for the safe use of any radiological or non-radiological material or equipment to be used in their work. The radiation safety officer should be required to routinely check on staff compliance with the safety procedure hazard analysis considerations that he lists in Form 364, as well as the practices planned and occurring in the relevant laboratories. A systematic study of all potential and actual hazards at NIST should be carried out across the board as soon as possible. On the basis of that analysis, a safe practices protocol should be developed for the guidance of all users of materials and equipment. The NIST staff training policies and practices should be thoroughly reviewed and modified to correct deficiencies. Staff must understand the hazards and their potential consequences of every new activity as well as ongoing projects, and become familiar with NIST administrative procedures as well as the safety requirements related to their work. All managers should be held accountable for promoting a safety culture within their purviews, and manager performance reviews should include a consideration of how effective they have been in that regard. The functionality of the line management relationships at NIST Boulder to NIST Gaithersburg should be examined as a possible contributor to this unfortunate event. The study could take place in parallel with the root causes analysis. Lines of communication and authority clearly broke down. Equally important is an examination of the functionality of the relationships between the Boulder Safety Organization and the other groups, divisions, and projects at Boulder and Gaithersburg. A clear understanding of how those relationships are envisioned by NIST top-level management has not been successfully communicated to staff at Boulder and is a serious weakness that should be corrected. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take on any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rogers. It is traditional at this point for the chairman to recognize himself for the first 5 minutes of questioning. I do so, and I now yield my time to Mr. Udall, the gentleman who represents the congressional district directly affected by this spill. He is a member of the full Science and Technology Committee and chair of the Space Subcommittee. Mr. Udall, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Wu, and welcome to the panel. I want to thank you, Chairman Wu, for holding this hearing today on this incident that occurred in my district in Colorado. I'm very disappointed, just like the ranking member and the chairman, that we're here today. This incident shouldn't have occurred in the first place, and I'm far from satisfied with NIST's response, both initially and as the situation has continued to develop. The apparent lack of an adequate emergency response plan and clearly inadequate protocols for handling toxic materials are just a few, or the first, I should say, of many serious problems that NIST must resolve. Now, let me just make it clear, NIST has done great work, and I'm proud to represent the labs and its employees here in Congress, but I intend to see these problems addressed. I want to turn my line of questioning, if I might, to Dr. Turner. Dr. Turner, the communication from NIST to the public and to state and local officials was inadequate. You didn't contact the state or county officials until I specifically asked you to a week and a half after the incident. And I'd like to find out more about your communication with your employees. The incident occurred on the afternoon of June 9th, but for some reason NIST and the other Department of Commerce employees were not informed until almost 24 hours later. That makes no sense. Why did it take so long to inform employees about the incident?
Yes, sir. First of all, let me say I fully agree with you that our response was inadequate and it was one of the major failures that we had. There's no question about that. I have done several things. One, I've directed our head of emergency services to prepare an emergency notification checklist that would apply to Boulder. It would include things like state and county officials on it, because I think during an event is not the time to have to think about who to call, when to call, and so forth, but to have that checklist in front of them so they would know it right away. So we've taken that step. Also,
Dr. Turner, if I might, I appreciate what you're putting in place, but if I could just continue, and I would welcome other additional information along that line, but I'm just curious, why couldn't you just have been frank with your employees, even a simple announcement that a spill had occurred and that we're going to move to understand what happened as soon as possible? That would have been helpful. Do you have a plan in place if something similar occurs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The whole incident was very slow to evolve. And let me.
But if I can interrupt you one more time, what if something happened tomorrow? Do you have a plan in place? A yes or no answer would be sufficient.
Yes, sir. We have certainly streamlined our communications. I've directed that changes be made in our emergency communications process so that senior managers like myself are immediately made aware of situations as they occur that warrant our attention.
The reason I ask is that I've heard from a lot of constituents in Boulder and those who work at NIST that they're not confident that you've fixed all these communication and safety problems. And after I hear Chairman Wu mention the serious laser incident that occurred in Gaithersburg in December, I would have thought that would have made you, as the head of the agency, aware that critical safety protocols were not being followed at the NIST laboratory complex. And on that note, I'd like to request that you provide all emails between Boulder and Gaithersburg relating to how and when employees, the press, and local and state government will be notified and what needed to be clarified, as you said.
Well, sir, let me answer your question in two parts. First of all, one of the ways that we can assure ourselves of whether we have fixed the problem or not is to do exercises. And so that is one of the things that we will plan to do. And I will play in those exercises to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on and what is happening.
So that's a yes. You're saying a yes, that you're going to put that all in place. And
yes, sir, absolutely. Because again, I think as with anything else, the plans are only as good as the execution.
Certainly.
And if our execution is flawed, we should find that. And if there are flaws in the execution or lessons learned, doing an exercise is the venue where you can find those things out before you, in fact, are in an actual situation.
Let me move to another line of questioning. I see my time is going to expire fairly soon. I'd like to know what you and the rest of the leadership at NIST plan to do to restore the trust of the employees, given in particular that since I've learned that NIST is already planning to terminate certain individuals in response to the incident. Now, the investigation isn't even complete, yet it seems like you're beginning to assign blame. Do you plan to make any personnel changes before the analysis is complete?
Sir, let me first of all, if I could, give a fairly detailed answer to your question.
I know my time's running out, so maybe a yes or no would be.
Well, first of all, there will be no personnel actions against anyone until I've had an opportunity to make sure that the process is fair and consistent.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding.
I thank the gentleman, and now the ranking member, Dr. Gingrey.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Dr. Miller, let me go back to your testimony, if I can. You, I think, said that, I think I heard you say that the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, has inspections about every 5 years or on a 5-year basis. First of all, I want to know if that's accurate, when the last inspection of NIST-Boulder occurred, and were there any deficiencies found at that particular time, and if so, was a corrective action plan submitted to NIST-Boulder?
Okay. Thank you, Congressman. I guess I would start to answer your question in that the 5-year inspection frequency, we have a graded approach to our inspection frequency based upon what we consider to be the safety and the risk aspects of any licensee using materials. And that ranges from, we have inspectors at certain facilities that are on site every day, to a 5-year frequency. The quantities of material that NIST was authorized to use were considered of low safety risks, so the inspection frequency was 5 years. The license by which they were given an amendment to get the plutonium was only within the last couple years, and so the inspection frequency hasn't triggered to actually go out there yet. However, before that, NIST had a license with the NRC for doing small amounts of work that would not have required us to actually do anything other than a telephone type of inspection activity. So when they changed their license, it triggered the 5-year frequency. So the NRC actually hadn't been to the Boulder facility for a large number of years, I think going back to sometime in the 1990s.
Right. In the light of this incident, would you, any of you, agree that possibly even with this minimal licensee in regard to the amount of nuclear material that they would be working with, obviously they don't have an active reactor on site, right. And I can understand that your explanation of that, but would any of you think that maybe every 5 years was not sufficient? I want you to answer that question, and then let me ask one last, which I think is particularly important in light of what my colleague from Colorado was saying in regard to the timeliness of the response of NIST-Boulder and its acting director. You knew about, I think I heard you testify that you were aware of this spill on June the 9th, and that an inspector was actually sent on June the 12th. This is occurrence on Monday, going to the site to inspect on Thursday. If I'm right on that timeline, that seems a little bit slack, if I may say so. Can you explain that for me as well?
Yeah, I'll start, and I'll let Mr. Collins, who was directly involved in dispatching the inspector, augment it. The reporting requirements for an event of this type would require that it be reported to the NRC within 24 hours, and NIST met that obligation. So I believe that it was on June 10th that we actually learned about it. And Mr. Collins can tell you the deliberation that he took in dispatching an inspector to the site.
Well, yes, you're saying that NIST met the 24-hour reporting requirement.
Right.
Now, what is the requirement for you to physically respond to an incident and have somebody on site? Is it more than 24 hours?
It depends on the incident, it depends on the travel arrangements, it depends upon what we determine we need with regard to the response.
Well, I would think travel arrangements, you know, I can get a flight anytime. Right. Day or night. I might have to wait a while, and you guys probably have access to better transportation than I do.
Right. He can tell you his deliberative process and how he chose to respond.
After we received notification of the incident from NIST on June 10th, we based we knew we needed to send in an inspector, and we needed some on-site confirmation of the circumstances. We based that at the time, and that's all we have, is the description of the event and the extent and the existence of any immediate safety issues associated with that event. We would not wait to get an inspector on site to make sure immediate safety issues are addressed had they been described to us that day. The description we got was that the rooms were isolated, that people had been identified, and that NIST had initiated actions to ensure that the radiation doses or potential radiation doses for those people were determined. And so that became the basis for our timeline. For getting
yeah, my time is about expired, Mr. Collins, but I would say that since you extended, our NRC extended this license to NIST to be able to handle this low-level amount of plutonium, there had not been a periodic inspection to make sure that they were doing the job right, that they were adequately trained and following all the protocol guidelines whatsoever. And so what they told you, I don't think I would be reluctant to rely on that, having no track record in regard to their prior performance. So I'm just going to close by saying, you don't have to respond, but maybe later you can, that maybe your response wasn't quite as timely as it should have been.
I thank the gentleman. The gentlelady from California, Ms. Richardson, recognized for 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me start off with my question to Mr. Turner. I'm sorry, Dr. Turner. How long have you been acting director?
I've been acting director since around Labor Day of 2007.
Okay. And do you agree with the recommendations of Mr. Rogers, Dr. Rogers?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I'm in substantial agreement with him. I certainly would like to, I would welcome the opportunity to discuss it with him further, just to make sure that we both have a similar understanding, but I have no, I see nothing in his report that I would disagree with.
Do you have the adequate funding to meet those recommendations?
We will provide the funding because safety is going to be a priority for us. And that's one of the reasons why I moved the safety office into the office to report to the director, so we could make sure that they had the resources they needed.
Who oversees the safety personnel? How does the recent reductions in funding for the safety division affect their duties? And at the time when NIST's funding has been increased significantly, why hasn't NIST devoted more resources to environmental health and safety?
Well, the resources that they basically had the same situation that all the rest of our labs were in. We received a modest increase in FY08, which did not cover the salaries and raises for all our employees. And so that covered some, but all our employees received the raises that they were entitled to. But we had to take some of that out of the base programs. But again, I'd like to emphasize, though, that one of the reasons why I moved the safety division to report now into the director's office is to assure that, one, we're aware of what their needs are, two, they're properly prioritized, and three, again, they have the adequate resources that they need.
Are all your labs the same?
I'm not sure if
In terms of the work that's done, are all of your labs the same?
No, our labs are quite different and diverse.
So then will you be evaluating the difference in terms of, you said that, first of all, you said they all got basically the same amount of money. And so if they're not all the same, and if they're all doing different duties, shouldn't it be somewhat different?
No, what I meant, what I intended there was that the amount of increase that we received in 2000, we needed about $13 million in FY08 to cover the increase in salaries and wages. We got about $6.5 million. And so everyone took some of that out of their base. And so that,
I'm not talking about the nuts and bolts of if a person received a 2% increase. I'm talking about if a lab has had a difference in terms of its responsibility, which has been discussed now in this committee. And so if now you're doing work that you weren't doing before, have there been changes done in terms of your safety personnel for those labs appropriately is the question.
well, first of all, we wanted to impress on all of our laboratories that the responsibility of safety starts with line management, and that they're responsible for that. Each lab has a division safety representative.
Dr. Turner, I apologize. I don't know if this is the first time you testified, but as members, we only get 5 minutes to ask questions. So my question is very specific to you. I understand safety is important. I understand it all goes to line management. I get all that. However, I just asked you the question, are all the labs the same? You said no. If the labs are different and if they have different levels of responsibility and danger, my question to you is, has that now been met at this particular lab and any other labs that might have a unique situation, and have you appropriated the appropriate funds to do so? That's my question.
Yes, ma'am, we have. We've done a hazards analysis, and that has been done.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
I understand. When did you learn of the incident?
I learned of it the morning of June 10th.
what process do you have in place to rectify that?
I directed that some changes be made in our emergency response capability for communication, that our 24-hour, 7 days a week emergency management systems office in Gaithersburg, if they received a call that should have been forwarded to me, or that that there would be a mechanism set up for the office to patch them through.
Are you now going to be notified immediately?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay.
And the important thing is that there's one number that anyone needs to remember.
Okay. My last question is to Dr. Rogers, and I think I've got about 15 seconds. You had an opportunity to go to this location, do an evaluation. How often would you recommend that inspection should occur, so that way we don't have the same situation again?
Well, I don't know how often regularly scheduled inspections should occur, but it does seem to me that the license changes, the changes in the NRC license, should have triggered an inspection.
Immediately, or
yes,
within?
with the introduction of special nuclear material and plutonium sources on site, even though they were small quantities, even though they were in encapsulated form, and encapsulated is not a well-defined technical term, it seems to me that there should have been a question about, well, now this is something new. This is really a totally different situation from what they were dealing with before, in my opinion. The introduction of plutonium was totally new, and the type of source that they were going to use was totally new. And in my opinion, NRC should have paid more attention to any possible changes that were taking place in the laboratory and how those materials are going to be used.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate your time, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentlelady. The gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Smith, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Several of your colleagues who provided independent reviews to Dr. Turner singled out the radiation safety officer for responding commendably, given the scope of the incident and a shortage of resources. How would you characterize the containment and cleanup effort by Boulder's safety personnel?
Well, first let me say that my expertise really lies in the general management of nuclear safety of organizations. I have a technical background, and I know something about these matters, but I would say that I would have to really rely on the expertise of my colleagues on whether the specific actions, one by one, day by day, minute by minute, were the best or were appropriate. It seems to me that they were a little slow, they were a little confused, but they did get back on track and proceeded in a reasonable way once that took place, but it did take a day or two.
Okay, thank you. And in your testimony, I wasn't sure whether it was your own words or words of others, that you said the safety culture at NIST is dysfunctional. Was that your characterization?
That was a quotation. That was not my own analysis necessarily, but it was a quotation of one of the people involved with safety at NIST. Involved in safety at NIST and admitted to his or her own dysfunction in relation to that? That in other words, I think the statement has to be interpreted in this way, that there were pockets of very, very fine attention to safety at NIST, and there were pockets of where it was just the opposite, that the safety organizational people had difficulty getting the attention of some of the middle-level managers with regard to safety issues. Others, they found very excellent cooperation. So I think the judgment of dysfunctional is perhaps to be interpreted as not uniformly good.
But the individual did try to raise the issue prior to the incident?
I don't know about that. That came out in our interviews with people. I don't know to what extent. I think there was a level of frustration.
I mean, if it was self-identified and nothing was done about it, that would seem.
I have to, Congressman, all I can say is that I did not have an opportunity to spend enough time to pursue it in any depth, but really took it to be a signal that a hard look has to be taken at safety organization and how it is responded to by the researchers at NIST.
But the comment was made that it was dysfunctional, and you chose not to look into it further?
Well, I didn't make any choice on this one way or the other. We spent as much time as we had to and available to us, and we interviewed 10 individuals that day, each for an hour. This was something that came out in one of the interviews.
More anecdotal in nature?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Miller, back to my previous question, how would you characterize the containment and cleanup effort by Boulder safety personnel?
Mr. Collins has got a team on site. He can tell you the current activities that are going on and how we characterize that, sir.
I think the highest priority for the special inspection team was to make sure that NRC had a good understanding and that the right actions were being taken to evaluate the extent of the spread of contamination, understand what the situation was, whether or not it was stable, understand the radiation doses which could be associated with that. What we have found to date is, while our work is still in progress, NIST has reasonably determined the extent of the plutonium spill. Rooms which are contaminated have been isolated, and we have commitments from NIST in our confirmatory action letter to present to the NRC a stabilization plan and a decontamination plan for approval before those activities begin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. And now in the regular order, it is appropriate to recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Udall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to turn back to Dr. Turner. And Dr. Turner, I was eager to get a number of questions in, and I didn't, to confirm that you will provide to us the emails that occurred after the incident here to the committee. Will you do that?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you. Before I was elected to the Congress, I served as the CEO, and previous to that, the CEO of the Colorado Outward Bound School. We had some 60,000 days a year in the mountains of Colorado, the rivers, and in the canyon country. And safety was bottom line, top line. It was everything. And you have to, as the leader, be ultimately responsible for what happens, even if you aren't in the field yourself. And you've said this incident's unacceptable, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. But what do you mean? Are you taking full responsibility for what?
Yes, sir, I am.
That's terrific. Specifically, where do health and safety standards fit in your priorities, and what changes are we going to see from your office? The initial reviews, I think, clearly point out that the incident was the result of an overall institutional failure to properly train employees. That's your responsibility. The NIST Safety Operational System is your responsibility. Have you read that document, and how does it need to change to reflect the lessons learned in this incident?
So I think there are some gaps that certainly are evident. There are some things in the operations and safety manual that are good. Other things are gaps. For example, the fact that right now there's people have up to 30 days. You know, I guess new researchers have up to 30 days before they need to get training. We need to close that and make that appropriate. You know, make that appropriate. That nobody works on anything until they're appropriately trained for that. So there are a number of things that we're going to do, but we also want to take in and have the benefit of the evaluations of the outside experts. The Department of Commerce is also putting together a blue ribbon panel. The Inspector General is also looking at us. There's feedback that we would get from the NRC, so we want to be able to incorporate all that. But let me assure you, sir, first of all, I take responsibility for this, and I'm determined to fix it.
I also appreciate hearing that, number one. Number two, I appreciate when Congresswoman Richardson talked about budgets, that you made it clear, I believe you made it clear, that even though your agency has had some cutbacks, as have all federal agencies, that you're going to find the dollars, you're going to find the resources.
Yes, sir.
Because there's no excuse to jeopardize.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
How many safety officials work the Boulder labs, and who do they report to?
I don't know the exact number, sir. We can certainly get that back to you. But they report to the head of the Safety, Environment, and Health Division in Gaithersburg.
Gaithersburg. Why don't they report to someone in Boulder? That doesn't really make sense to me as a longtime safety officer in my last career. I'd encourage you to look at changing that as NIST learns from the incident, and I'd like to also encourage you, as I did a few weeks ago, to respond quickly and directly to requests by my staff and the committee staff. We still haven't received some simple things we've requested, like a timeline. It's been more than a month since the incident.
Yes, sir. And let me just say that, first of all, I apologize, if we've been slow in responding, but also I'll be leaving for Boulder this evening, and one of the things I want to do when I'm there is to have a discussion about the roles and responsibilities and reporting structure that we have for our site director out there, because quite frankly, I think that was a contributing cause for the slowness of our response. The incommensurate responsibility without authority, and that's one of the things that we're looking to fix.
That may go to my point about maybe having a safety officer on the ground in Boulder, but we want to pursue that further as you.
But so let me just mention. I apologize for. I hope I didn't mean to cut you off, but we do have a safety office there in Boulder. They report to the safety division in Gaithersburg.
Who knew that NIST had plutonium in the lab before the incident? I've heard that some people who worked there didn't know, and I'm just curious why. Did employees fully understand what they were dealing with? I know a committee staff member was there a few weeks before, and she was in that very room, and she was not aware that that was what was being undertaken, that research with plutonium and the other materials that were there.
Well, the plutonium was there to do work on developing detectors that weapons inspectors could be using. And as I understand it, NIST has about an order of magnitude better capability for those detectors than anywhere else in the country. But clearly, it was a major failing that there was research going on with plutonium in that laboratory, and other people doing other business in that laboratory were not aware.
Can I ask that you'll get us that information for the record when it's available, and we can get the exact questions to you after the committee here.
Yes, sir.
But, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the time, and yield back the time I have remaining, which is no time.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Miller and Mr. Collins, if you would, either of you, in your testimony you state that the confirmatory action letters document mutually agreed upon corrective actions. How did the NRC and NIST come to an agreement on the actions taken through the July 2nd letter, and how would you characterize NIST's cooperation with the NRC since the event?
Okay. Mr. Collins will answer that question because he was directly responsible in issuing the confirmatory action letter to NIST.
We became aware of the need for a confirmatory action letter. That's a mechanism we have to put in place actions and commitments that immediately when we feel they're warranted to make sure that the situation is safe and remains safe. We became prompted to do that the more we became aware of what appeared to be broad breakdowns in the procedures and programmatic radiation safety program controls at NIST. We began our discussions with NIST before the special inspection team arrived on site, and after that team arrived on site and began its initial work, we had continuing discussions and were able to dialogue face-to-face with NIST officials to obtain their commitments prior to the finalization of that letter on July 2nd.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Rogers, other than safety training and education, what else do you believe could be done to ensure that guest researchers certainly fully appreciate the implications of their actions?
Supervision certainly is an important aspect there of their initial work. A guest researcher is someone who comes with high credentials, but it has been my long experience that an excellent technical credential does not necessarily confer with it either common sense or detailed knowledge that is not involved with the work that is to begin. So that it seems to me immediate supervision of any new guest researcher by experienced people at the lab would be an important addition to training and whatever else you mentioned.
Okay. Did you want to repeat some? No, I'm just joking what you said earlier. And perhaps you kind of answered this partially, but would there be any specific recommendations on how to ensure that the scientists at NIST facilities are adequately prepared, excuse me, for dealing with the radioactive sources?
Well, there's a great deal existing in the way of policies, procedures, organizational structures, and so on and so forth. They just haven't been used consistently. To me, the central question is developing an attitude of safety on the part of every single person in the place. And that's a very big challenge. It's not simply imposing a collection of new requirements. It's something that has to come almost automatically when people start to work, that they think of safety along with whatever else they're doing. And in this particular instance, it seemed to me that the elementary questions were not asked. There wasn't sort of a sense of intellectual curiosity on the part of key individuals that they would understand what it is they were dealing with. Maybe not having the training was important, an important flaw, but also not having an inquiring mind to ask, well, what is this stuff I'm dealing with? Is it dangerous or not? It's plutonium. What is that? And these are people with scientific backgrounds that should sit down and go and do a little reading before they begin working.
Well, I have a memo here that I think would be particularly instructive based on what's at stake here. And I appreciate the hearing today, and I would assume that most folks would understand, especially those with excellent credentials would understand the implications of what has happened or what could happen. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. I understand the gentlelady does not have any questions at this point in time. Then the chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. We are dealing with a situation with about 0.25 grams of plutonium. Dr. Miller, did I hear you correctly that the terms of the license between the NRC and the NIST would potentially permit NIST to ask for up to any subcritical amount of plutonium?
I don't believe that I said that, Congressman, but the
I
terms
thought
of
I
the
heard it.
license do have specific provisions in them, and I can tell you, I can turn to the license and tell you exactly what they are. But they are not authorized. They are not authorized critical amounts of material.
No, I said
Yes.
subcritical. I thought you said
But it's less, the
amounts.
terms of their license is, there is a margin between the terms of their license and what would be authorized for criticality. It's not right up to it.
But potentially, it could have been a much larger amount of plutonium that was in a.
The terms of their license not only restrict them with regard to the total amount of plutonium they're authorized to possess and use, but there's restrictions in the license with regard to what each individual source that's used can contain. So they could not contain that amount of plutonium in any one given source, given the terms of the license.
Okay,
And the
well,
total amount of plutonium that they were authorized to possess on that license was significantly less than what would be that for a critical amount.
It's bad enough when we're dealing with 0.25 grams. I'm concerned about the terms by which the laboratories may have multiple sources adding up to significantly more, and perhaps our staffs can get together to see precisely what those amounts might add up to.
Yes, and we can certainly answer that information. We have that information, and we can tell you, why the terms of the license were what they were, given the amounts that they were possessing. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. And you referred to a 5-year period of inspection, and either it's either a NIST internal rule or an NRC term of the license. I believe that there's supposed to be annual trainings for personnel handling these materials. Is that correct?
The terms of the license require annual training.
Yes.
The terms of the NRC license impose that requirement on this through the license.
Okay. Well, Dr. Turner, Dr. Rogers, do you have at hand the last time that the personnel involved were actually trained?
I can get that for you, sir, but one of the things I wanted to mention was that all work with radioactive sources has been stopped at NIST in Boulder until
Yes,
we can
yes,
assure
I
that
understand,
we are
Dr.
meeting
Turner.
all
You know,
the terms of the
I
license.
I understand that you have taken those steps, cautionary steps, appropriately going forward. I'm looking back now before this incident, and it is my understanding that there was one training in 2007, and that prior to that, the prior training was in 2005, but no one has records as to the intensity, duration, or the content of those trainings. At least that is what I have been briefed on. And if you all have any contrary information or supplemental information, I'm
Sir,
very interested in it.
I'd be happy to provide it. I saw a list of the training. Most of the training was, at least on the list that I saw, was up to date. There were a few cases, for example, the researchers involved in this situation where the training had not taken place.
So other folks were up to date, but the subject individuals were not up to date.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The consequence of this management environment, if you will, there are a couple of things that I saw in the train of events which, at least to me, seemed like it could have been prevented by adequate training. In one of the documents prepared by NIST as a report to the NRC, I believe that post-incident, a number of the employees decided to stay in a hallway, and then one person suggested that they take their shoes off. It was commendable to think about not tracking materials around on their shoes, but net, by taking the shoes off, you expose socks and feet to the materials. The other one was washing hands over an open drain. Dr. Rogers, Dr. Turner, Dr. Miller, do you agree with me that those are some of the things that are prevented by adequate training and a complete program and culture of training?
Yes, sir. I totally agree. And also, I think the assumption of responsibility and leadership on the part of line management, as well as having in place a firm, aggressive, positive safety culture.
Well, I quite agree. I quite agree that some elementary training would have avoided some of this. Information was not conveyed to the person most directly involved with this incident that I would say could have been figured out by that individual, but it was not transmitted to that individual. So that you had a situation with a guest researcher who was unfamiliar with, one, the laboratory general administrative management requirements of the lab, and two, not familiar with the details of the technical aspects of the work involving radioactive materials in which that person was going to be engaged.
Thank you. I see that my time has expired. My understanding is that Mr. Udall has a follow-up question.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding. And before I ask my question, I would ask unanimous consent that a letter from the City of Boulder be entered into the record. It expresses the City of Boulder's concerns about the incidents and what they believe should be the path forward.
So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to turn to both Dr. Miller and Dr. Turner and ask you, is there anything in the NIST protocols, anything in NIST procedures that would prevent NIST from releasing a list of radioactive and hazardous material at the labs to the City of Boulder and the public in general? Dr. Miller, or maybe someone else here would be better prepared to answer the question, but I'm...
From the NRC's perspective, traditionally NRC's licenses have all been public except for aspects which are security matters. Following the events of 9/11, we had to take a look at what information would be public and what would not be. And to some degree, as a result of all that, we have not publicized those amounts. However, that said, we certainly, at every return, the NRC has always cooperated with state and local government officials to make sure that they're fully informed and have access to that information. Colorado itself is an NRC agreement state. Because this is a federal facility, we regulate it, but we have a relationship with our state partners in the state of Colorado. We certainly would be happy to share any information with them. But there is a certain amount of what we are now doing that is not made publicly available with regard to these types of licenses. And again, it goes back to national security matters, Congressman.
What I hear you saying is if there isn't a national security concern, and that is important, we all acknowledge, then there's nothing that would prevent NIST from releasing the list of these radioactive and hazardous materials. Depending on the state, depending where the activities are occurring.
Yes, I mean, certainly the local officials should have access to that information, okay, because of a number of reasons, including their duties as it would relate to emergency response.
Dr. Turner, you care to respond?
Yes, sir. I became aware of the letter this morning, and I asked one of my staff in Boulder to see if they could arrange a meeting between me and some of the city officials so that we could discuss the content of that letter and what an appropriate response would be. And also, you know, we've had so many missteps because of lapses in communication, and I really wanted to make sure that this was not another situation where we had a misstep because of a lapse of communication. That's why I wanted to meet directly with city officials to make sure we had an agreement on exactly what was being requested and what an appropriate response would be.
So what I hear you saying is you'd be willing to consider their request. You want to sit down and talk with them. You want to complete your analysis, the various reviews that are underway. But and you will consider it. What I would add is we certainly have a tradition in the world of public policy and public information, everything from FOIA to other protocols, of letting the public know as much as we possibly can about materials that could affect the safety or welfare or health of the public. And I think in the long run we all agree it's better to err on that side than to keep these materials hidden from view or lessen the awareness that communities may have of those materials.
Yes, sir. We want to be a good, responsible neighbor to the community that's been so good to us.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the chairman again for holding the hearing. Let me just end on this note. This is a very serious incident. As I've said here today, I'm very disappointed in the way it's been handled.
Yes, sir.
And I have assurances from you that you're going to move with dispatch, that you're going to be open, and that we're going to find out what happened, and then we're going to put protocols in place and even take a look at the culture in NIST, because that may be a part of what has to change, and the NRC personnel who are here are very well versed in that. But I did want to also emphasize the very important work that NIST does, how proud we are to have you in our community, how proud we are to have so many, all of the scientists and the engineers and the great personnel there, and to underline the work you do in a whole host of areas that make modern life what it is, and the important work that was being done in this situation, which is to better understand how to prevent proliferation of nuclear materials, nuclear weaponry. And we want that work to go ahead. We want to understand how we can even be better at analyzing and identifying people who are comporting with international standards and those who aren't. So that's why it's so important to get this figured out and get back on track, because that work has to continue.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And let me just say that this has shaken NIST to its core. As you are aware, our employees are fiercely proud, as am I, of being NIST employees, and this has shaken all of us. I have been personally very heartened by the response of our laboratory directors. Also, I met yesterday with the group that represents the researchers as well as our NIST fellows, and I outlined to them the importance of what we're doing, and that we needed their help. And I was really heartened by their response, that they are taking this seriously and that they're committed, as am I, to fixing this.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing.
Thank the gentleman from Colorado. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be possible for the minority to review the letter. I don't necessarily want to object, but if it would be possible for the minority to review the letter and then allow for the consent at a later time.
Is the gentleman referring to the letter from the city of Boulder?
Yes.
I would be happy to make the letter available to the gentleman, but I believe that without a timely objection, it is entered in the record. But if the gentleman has any concerns about the letter, please enter that into the record.
Well, this is just the first I've seen it, and I would like, to review it a little further.
I would be, I'd be delighted to make the letter available to the gentleman.
Okay, thank you.
I thank the gentleman, and the chair recognizes himself one last time. Dr. Turner, you referred to an email notice to you, which I believe came in on a Monday night, and then you did not see that email until Tuesday morning. Email has terrific utility in permitting us to time shift our communication, but there's some things which I think we all agree can rise above that and need immediate attention. You have referred to fixing these communication systems within NIST. Sure. I'm going to ask you just very briefly that I assume that this form of email communication for exigent circumstances has been replaced by something which, for all of us in these jobs, can reach us 7 by 24.
Yes, sir. That's why there's one number for people to remember to call, and that's it.
And that number ultimately winds up at a appropriate place in the chains of notification and command.
Yes, it goes directly to our emergency services office, and then they in turn relay the call to whether it's me or whatever the appropriate official is. But there's one, the important thing is there's one number to call, and then they will do the rest to contact us.
Well, this committee, this subcommittee, the full committee, and the committee staff will continue to work with NIST to make sure that that the information is reported appropriately, both within NIST to other agencies and to oversight bodies such as this one.
Yes, sir.
I want to turn back to the laser incident in Gaithersburg, and what is troubling to me about the laser incident is that I did not know about the laser incident, and it appears that no one in an oversight position was aware of the laser incident until this plutonium incident came to light. Did NIST take any steps to notify its own employees or Congress or anyone else about the Gaithersburg laser incident?
Yes, sir. Let me describe the process that we've done. One of the things that I did after I became acting director was to institute a standing policy at our NIST leadership meetings where we begin each meeting with a 5-minute safety topic. Each one of our leaders has to report on something. So again, it's to infuse in them the idea that they are responsible, as a line managers for safety. We also, for accidents which occurred, we also have the lab director who was involved.
Dr. Turner, I'm asking specifically about the laser incident in Gaithersburg.
Yes, sir. And the lab director who was involved gave a presentation to our leadership board because there are lasers used throughout NIST. And so that way we are able to make sure information is exchanged, and also there were changes made, for example, in the setup at our Gilla facility that we share with the University of Colorado, because they had a very similar setup. And so that information, that lessons learned, information sharing, resulted in precautions being taken in other laboratories as a result of hearing about and learning about the causes and the actions taken in the laser incident.
You're saying that did occur with respect to the Gaithersburg laser incident. It's just that it did not rise to the level that there would be any notification of this committee or committee staff.
Yes, sir. If we had a misstep in informing this committee, I apologize for that, sir.
Now, these are different devices, but could that first incident have had lessons learned beyond laser uses that could have helped with the plutonium incident.
Yes, sir. I think this is one of the things that we've done. You know, we are not looking at this situation as a Boulder only. We're looking across NIST because of this. We're not looking at this as a radiation safety issue only. We're looking at radiation safety, hazardous materials. We're also looking at equipment. We're also looking at machinery, things which pose risk. You know, we are including that in our comprehensive review of safety and safety policies.
Going forward, and Dr. Turner, you have made many commitments today to start making changes appropriate in procedure and in the culture of safety at NIST. What are your expectations about the timeline? What are your expectations about appointing appropriate panels in addition to the folks that you've already appointed to look into this incident?
Well, first of all, I have made clear to everyone that this is a high priority for us, our highest priority. I've also made it clear to everyone that this is not a short-term problem. This, you know, changing cultures is a long, difficult thing to do, as Dr. Rogers referred to. So I have made that clear that you know, this is something that we're going to be you know, that's going to be on our radar screens for quite some time to come, and that I'm determined to fix it and make it right. And so, you know, people are aware of that. People understand the enormity of the challenge that we face and our determination to fix it. And I think our colleagues at NIST share that same determination that it get fixed. This is, you know, we want to make clear this is not a temporary, fleeting issue. This is something that we need to ingrain and have sustainable.
Dr. Rogers, since you're the one outside representative group, or Dr. Miller, if you'd care to comment, to this point in time, should we be feeling good about the steps that NIST has initially taken to change the safety culture, or should we have further concerns, or some combination of each?
Well, with respect to NIST, it seems to me everything I've heard has been very positive, very professional. It's going to take some time, and there are steps along the way. It does seem to me that Dr. Turner's explanation of how NIST is viewing this incident is exactly correct, that it is not just a small incident in one laboratory. It is a manifestation of an underlying problem that needs to be worked on, but there's not going to be a quick fix totally. We are talking here about a cultural issue. It's not just rules and regulations, and culture is something that's ingrained in people. So that it's going to take some time to be absolutely confident, if ever one can be, that that this cultural change has taken place. But it does seem to me that Dr. Turner's explanation of the approach that's being taken is entirely correct.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, the NRC is very happy to hear Dr. Turner's remarks and commitments. However, we were very concerned about the nature of this event also. That's why we responded in the way that we do. As you know from our testimony, we have currently suspended NIST's authority through the confirmatory action letter to use these materials. And we want to be convinced that they have these things in place and gain our trust before we're going to allow them to renew any use of that. But the statements that Dr. Turner's made today and his commitments are a beginning at convincing the NRC that NIST is serious about doing this. But I can assure you that the NRC will stay on top of this until we feel comfortable that they have our confidence to renew any use of these materials.
Thank you very much. I want to touch on one final topic, because I think we are all agreed, and Dr. Turner, I am gratified to hear about the steps that you are taking, and as we all agree, this is a long-term process of cultural change and building in and educating for appropriate prompt action. I want to, as forcefully as I can state in my own quiet way that I would be deeply concerned about viewing this situation as one where picking out one or a couple of wrong actions and one or a couple of wrong actors and then taking punitive steps in that direction would be viewed as, quote unquote, solving the problem. I think that that is something which would be demoralizing to an excellent agency. You might lose good people that way. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Udall, referred previously to employee morale issues. I think that inculcating a culture of learning from past mistakes and incorporating lessons learned into a changed culture is a hallmark of a good or great organization. I have certainly appreciated the work that NIST has done over many years. I am fond of saying that in economics or in science, if you can't measure it, it's not real, and NIST helps us do that. NIST helps us standardize things, and without your good work, we would be doing things in faith where we need to be doing things in technology or science. Nothing wrong with faith. It's just it doesn't necessarily move blocks where we need to move blocks. So this committee, this subcommittee, and the full committee will continue to work with NIST, with the NRC, and with outside review panels for, I believe, a good while to come to ensure, Dr. Turner, that you and perhaps your successors to come over many years continue to build a better culture of safety in addition to the intellectual and technical excellence that you all have clearly built at NIST. So as we bring this hearing to a close, I want to thank each of the witnesses and Mr. Collins for being here today and testifying before the subcommittee. The record will remain open for additional statements from members and for answers to any follow-up questions the committee may ask, and there will be further questions from me and from other members and from committee staff for you all and the agencies that you all represent. And with that, I thank you very much for being here on this very important and very difficult subject. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.